Welcome to Impact 2022. I am Nathaniel Watkins, and I am your host. And for those of you who have been here before, you know that this is our continuing conversation where we talk about different issues from race, where we talk about religion, where we talk about current events, and we talk about all of these things from a religious standpoint. This is our continuing conversation. And as always, we say and we invite you to put in your questions and your comments into the comment section, as this is a continuing conversation. And so, just like most nights, we go right into our topics and start talking about what we have going on. What we're doing today is one, we're going to talk about one of the stories that we talked about a couple of months ago, if not a year ago, uh, and then also go into another current event topic, just to kind of get on what's going on right now, some hot button issues about what's going on right now. Um, so a couple of years ago, we there was a case where there was a man and a woman on the highway in Georgia who were driving. It's a man, a black man, mixed race, and a white woman, so a mixed couple, who were driving on the highway, and they were being harassed, chased and harassed by another car full of white men, young white men, who were hurling insults and racial slurs and trying to drive them off of the road. And what then happened was that the man, his name is Mark Wilson, shot into or shot at the vehicle full of the white men who were harassing him, and subsequently shot, and it hit one of the passengers in the back and killed a 17-year-old boy. And so the story went as what he was going to use as his defense was a stand your ground law. He was protecting himself and his girlfriend, um, and they were, he had a legal handgun, um, and he shot into the vehicle with the white teens. And so his defense was the stand your ground law, the same law that has been used numerous times uh, against people of color. And he was using that defense in Georgia. Now, today, or this week, what we found out was that he was actually convicted of manslaughter for killing the 17-year-old boy who was in the back of the truck of the people who were harassing him. And what is interesting is, or not interesting, but what we said at the time, or what was said at the time in that show, and what was said by many people, is that the stand your ground law only goes one way. It does not apply to people of color. It applies only against people of color. And we were very clear back then. And so this went to trial. This went to trial, and went through the whole process, and he was found guilty of manslaughter, um, involuntary manslaughter. Now his family, because again he's a mixed race man. They sat back and they said, and the white members of his family said, look, if he was just a couple of shades lighter, he wouldn't have been found guilty. It is reported that less than 30% of the time, when someone uses the stand your ground law and they're a person of color, that they're successful. Um, Whereas the rate, if you are a white person, is higher. And so basically this law, if you look at it a certain way, this law seems and appears to be designed to protect only one group of people from other groups of people, or it only is designed to protect groups of people from having to retreat or being able to stand your ground against people of color. And so the outrage for some is that this doesn't appear to be fair, and the lack of shock and surprise from others was that we knew that this was going to happen the whole time. Again, to wrap this stand your ground law. To circle back, this is the stand your ground law. This is the law where you don't have the obligation to retreat. And in like any other cases, in many other cases, this one was really pretty much clear cut. You got some people who are trying to run you off of the road. You don't have to retreat. They took again. He took his his legal registered handgun and shot into the vehicle. And you can say it however you want to say. If they're running you off the road, they're using the vehicle as a weapon to try to harm you and harm the person with you. What other standard do you have to go by? We've seen standards far, far less where people are getting off for standing your ground. And these laws, again, are still active in many other places. Many states still have these laws active on their books, the stand your ground law, or they call them the obligation to retreat, where you don't have the obligation to retreat and run away. You can stand your ground and you can fight back. But we know that the justice is not put out evenly. And so in this case, we called it not a victory lap, but more of you need to be really realistic when you hear people say, well, you need to just, if you just act a certain way or do a certain way, the law is going to protect you. The law is not made balanced, and it's shown in this situation right here. I'm not being objective. I'm being very clear and letting you know that my opinion is this is clearly a case of, because this gentleman has some melanin in his skin, he cannot qualify for standing your ground. And that's a reminder of how these laws, the laws that are on the book, and these standing ground laws are not old. These are not some old timey laws from the 1800s where we're sitting back saying, well, that's why they're used to, disenfranchise people, because they were made way back in the day. These laws, most of them are relatively new, 30 years or less, and these laws are made to disenfranchise us at that clip. That's from before. And now we're going to talk about what's going on right now. Now we're going to talk about what is and should be an outrage to all of us, all human beings in walks of life, whether you call yourself moral or not, whether you call yourself a person of faith or not. We're getting to an issue that is hot and in the news. And one of the reasons that we continue to hit on things that are current is because I know in the day-to-day, sometimes people miss some things. And so we try to bring them up and bring them to the forefront so that you know what's going on and you know what's important. But I am pretty sure you've heard this. And this is what's been going on with migrants being shipped across state lines, shipped from states at borders and shipped to other states in a political fashion for political points, what some people are calling it. And so let's be plain. Let's be really plain. This is not a political show, but we're going to have to talk about it how it is. You have states such as Texas, who are Republican states with Republican leadership, who have decided that for political gain, they're going to ship migrants. They're going to ship individuals who have crossed the border to come to the United States who are not citizens, ship them to other states who are Democratic states so that they could try to overwhelm the system in those states. And so Texas has been notorious for doing it. They put people on buses and they ship them to DC, or they ship them to Michigan, or they ship them to different places for political reasons. But one of the things that just happened is that Florida got involved. And the governor of Florida has decided that they were going to pay to put some migrants onto airplanes and fly them to Martha's Vineyard. And so I don't know if you understand how far that is. It's to take you from the southern part of the United States and fly you to the northeastern part of the upper northeastern part of the United States, and drop them off in an affluent area that they call a liberal area, affluent liberal area. And what was done here, if you don't know the details, what has been alleged now by the migrants is that they were lured onto the planes. They were promised jobs and opportunities. They were promised that they had shelters and more resources out here. So we're just going to take you out to this place in Martha's Vineyard. So these are people from Venezuela. And they hired, the state of Florida hired a Venezuelan person to go and speak to them and encourage them to come on with promises of jobs and opportunities, and then flew them out to Martha's Vineyard. There were no jobs or opportunities that they had set up. They just dropped these people off at the airport, no notice, no nothing, and just put them out there, and then moved away and flew away. But let's go even deeper in the detail of what's going on with this. Is that these aren't illegals. These aren't people who cross the border illegally. These are people who follow the legal process. You're like, well, what do you mean the legal process? These are people from Venezuela who came over and turned themselves into the government to seek asylum. That is a legal process of trying to escape an area or a situation that is bad and then asking the government for asylum. This is not people who are crossing the border, sneaking in, and then trying to just start working or living a life or doing things. These are people who came here and turned themselves over to the government to go through the legal process of seeking asylum. Asylum seekers. Okay. So to me, it doesn't matter. But to some others, they may draw a distinction that says, well, these people are illegal versus these people. Whatever. These are human beings who came over here and they're following the legal process of seeking asylum. And they were tricked and moved and dropped off in another state for political points. These people were in Florida. Were in Texas. The Florida governor paid to charter two flights, to pack them up into planes and fly them over there to say, well, we're protecting Florida because we don't want all of these people who are coming across the border to come over here and overwhelm our system. I don't know if you know this, but Texas and Florida are not that close together. It's going to take you a long time to get from Texas to Florida. And so there has been some outrage. There's been significant outrage because no matter how you look at this is human trafficking. No matter how you look at this, the state of Florida, and I want to continue to say the state of Florida because it is the governor, but there are a lot of people who have been complicit with this. And everyone who voted for the governor in Florida, supports the governor of Florida, you are all involved. So the state of Florida is human trafficking. The state of Florida are moving people from one place to another under the guise of jobs. They lied to these folks. They tricked these folks. We have a comment that it's very true. It's like shipping Africans to America. Tricked, fooled, just grabbed up and moved to another place. And for the purpose of trying to intentionally have you in a situation of where you don't have any resources. Now let's flip back. There was another scenario, and that is the Texas governor who kept shipping people. Texas governor has chartered with chartered a bus and has informed the owners of the bus that they are not allowed to contact any other services in any of the places that they're getting ready to drop the people off to. And so when they're going from Texas to Florida, they can't contact from Texas to DC, because that's a lot of the places they're trying to drop people off in DC, they drop people off in Virginia, drop people off in places that politically makes them feel good because they think those are Democratic areas. And so when they get there and they drop these people off, they make sure that they do not contact anyone for resources. The contractor who was hired by the state of Texas has stated that they are not allowed. Not only are they not allowed to contact anybody, if anybody contacts them and asks them about bringing in some people, some migrants, that they are not allowed to give any information out because they don't have the ability to do so based on the contract. And you went, well, why? Well, maybe they're doing it for privacy. No. What they're doing is they want to make sure that these people have no resources when they get there. They have no help when they get there. They don't have an ability to go. The places that they're being dropped off, all of them have resources where these people organizations will come out and make sure they have food, clothing, make sure they get to the right places, shelter, things like that. These people from Texas, these people from Florida are intentionally trying to play games with the lives of these migrants and put them in situations that is the most harmful for them, hoping that something terrible will happen, hoping that they will do something bad. So why are we talking about this? Are we talking about this because the state of Texas, the government in Texas, the governor in Texas is such a bad human being. Are we talking about this because the government in Florida, because the governor in Florida is such a bad human being? That's obvious. But that's not why we're talking about this. We're talking about this, or I'm talking about this with you, because the responsibility of those who support and help these individuals to be governor, support and help their political parties to thrive and be what they are. Those who support and help or say that I'm a part of the movement that they're a part of, you're all as guilty as them. If the governor, Ron DeSantis of Florida, is a human trafficker, and that's what he is, you are too, if you support him. If the governor of Texas is a human trafficker, you are too, if you are a part of the same political party that he's a part of and you support him. And I think that that's the part that we need to understand, and we need to make sure that we hammer home in our day-to-day conversations, because we're like, well, what can we do? Well, right now there are some lawsuits going on. There's a civil lawsuit going on. They're checking, the Justice Department and some other organizations are checking to see about the legalities of what they have going on, because of the fact that it's an entrapment or ensnarlement when you're lying to people to get them to go places and do things for the benefit of not them, but just for the benefit of yourself. So there's some legal questions there, and that's not something that the average person can do. But I think that it's important in a day and a time where we all want to be so cautious with our words and nice to one another, that we call a spade, that we say what the truth is. So your responsibility and my responsibility is that when you have a conversation with someone, when you're talking with someone and they're talking about how the governor did this and that's a terrible thing, and they don't represent the truth, or they don't represent what America is, a reminder that these people don't act alone. And if you help them get into the power or where they're at, then you are part of the problem, that you are an accessory to the crime. And so, and again, we try not to make this, a political thing, one party versus the other, and blah blah blah, and blah blah blah. But we got to be real, and we got to keep it playing. These are Republican governors who are doing these things under the idea of being Republican, because of this whole movement of I don't know, being anti-immigrant, anti-brown, black and brown immigrant. Let's be clear on that, because no one has a problem when the Ukrainians were brought over here. So let's be clear. Let's be real and plain. Or no one has a problem when we have groups from Europe to come on over here. But when they're brown, when they're black, all of a sudden it's a different ballgame, and we have some different words, thinking that they're all criminals and gang members and different things like that. But you are an accessory to the crime if that's the group that you're with. If I'm standing out here with a group of folk and they all decide to run up in a store and I'm a part of that group, they're going to arrest everybody. I'm a part of the crime. And so you can be a criminal by being a participant, or you can be a criminal by being an enabler. But I think it's clear that we have to make sure that in our day-to-day conversations that we let people know. You can't sit back here and say that I am this and I am that. I'm a moral person. I believe in God. I'm not going to treat people wrong, but I'm going to enable and support those who do. You can't sit back. There's nobody in Florida right now who supports Governor DeSantis who can sit back and say he's a bad person, he's a human trafficker, but I'm not. If you support him, you're there with him. You're an enabler. You're a participant. When we look at his historical pictures, there's only a couple. You look at pictures of lynchings, and I think we've made this point before. There was only a couple of people who physically were involved in the lynching, who grabbed the person, who put the rope around their neck, who threw the rope around the tree. But when you see these photos, you see you might see 100 people sitting around watching, out there just laughing, participating, taking a photo. All of them are lynchers. All of them are murderers. whether you participated or you didn't. All of them. And so I say that to you, Texas, Florida. I say that to you, people who call themselves members of the Republican Party in those states. I say that to you, to anybody who dares thinks that it's okay to vote for them. It's not. You are a human trafficker. You are an abuser of people who are coming here to the United States to seek asylum. You are an abuser of folk who you don't know, or just people who are trying to just do, you don't know. You don't know them. People who are just maybe trying to have a different life. Same thing that you have, same goals that you have. And the only difference is they were born here and you were born there. You are the problem. Like, let's be clear. And that works for everyone. If there is a person that I am affiliated with, if a political party I'm affiliated with, and I don't speak up against it, and I'm just going to sit there and ride with it, or I'm going to sit there and support somebody who does some bad person, then I am the problem. And I think that that's the part that we need to reiterate to one another. Like, if I'm talking to you and you're going to tell me how you're a big supporter of this person or that person, like, oh yeah, Ron DeSantis is great and I'm part of his party, you're the problem. You're a human trafficker. You need to do better. Like, I don't know DeSantis. I'm not talking to DeSantis. I don't need to talk to him, but I can talk to you. And I know that you're just as bad as him if you support him. And I think that's the clarity that we need to have with some of us, because we sit back and we act like, we can help people and enable people and support people, but yet we could be clean when they start doing all of this bad stuff. You help them do that. You put them in a position to be able to do that. Comment. Even children are being children. Yet these people want to push an agenda that makes abortion illegal because they want to protect unborn children. Yeah, they don't care anything about people at all. They don't care about human lives. All they care about is control. Yeah. And that's the part that has to hammer home too. They're supporting their children. They're moving children. They're moving just people, just human beings, back and forth for political gains. And what is not changing is that you still see that there are large groups of people. This isn't both of those governors are trying to get reelected. And the polling shows in Texas that they're in the lead, and Florida as well. Like these their approval points are high. Their approval rating should be 10% or less, but it's in the 40s and the 50s, which means there are a large amount of people who will sit back and say, "I don't care about other human lives." And so that's what I'm saying. And what can I do? What can you do in your conversations to make sure that you're clear with people, that you are not absolved from the evil that you're supporting? If you're going to try to give yourself credit when you give money to the Red Cross, if you're going to try to say, well, I support good causes and I do this and I do that, I donate or I'll volunteer, blah, 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 blah. If you get a little credit for doing those things, then you definitely get the credit for doing the opposite. This is not a situation of where we can sit back and absolve ourselves from the sins that we support. And so I want to encourage all of us in an action item. Not that you need to go out here and call people names, but just remind folk. Just remind us. We need to all be reminded that it is a real responsibility and a big responsibility when you start voting. It is a real responsibility and a big responsibility when you start supporting different leaders and leadership. The followers are just as important, if not more, than the leaders. And if you have people who are following and pushing a leader, then you are guilty for the things that the leader does. Christian nationalists have a different gospel that does not practice Christian principles, such as, when I was hungry, you feed me. Yeah. It's a political group, that Christian nationalist group, and that's the thing, especially in churches. I think that it's clear to say and clear to put out there, because what we don't want to do sometimes is have those conversations and be accusatory of one another. But don't come in here on Sunday talking about, you follow the word of God, and then turn around and you push people who don't, or push people who contradict, or people who work against the word of God. So don't come in here and talk about your Christian values, and then you're trying to human traffic people. Don't talk about your Christian values and you're trying to take away people's rights. So it's a concerning event when we sit back and we're talking about the migrant situation. And to those, and again, I put it out here, to those who sit back and want to talk about them as if there's some criminals who've come across. In the Martha's Vineyard situation, these people from Venezuela, they are seeking asylum in there, and they are doing the legal process. And even if you think that that's important, let me be very clear. It doesn't matter. Because if you came across here illegally, if you risked your life to come from whatever country that you came from to come here, obviously you've done that for a reason. And we should treat you like the neighbor that you are. Well, that time is gone away. That's pretty much it. And let me, and if you think, this is the last point I will make, because one of the people who was taken away on the bus, this was a bus when they were bused to DC. One of the people who went from Texas to DC, what he said was they told him that he needed to get on the bus because they had to take him over here, again, for some other resources and things like that. He had an appointment set up the following week on Tuesday for his appointment for his asylum seeking. So he had an appointment set up in Texas where he was supposed to meet with the authorities, and so they could talk through his process. Because that's what a lot of them do. They come here. A lot of people come here. They get set up in their shelter or the camp that they're in, and they're waiting to be able to talk to the immigration officials. And so he had his meeting set up, which he then missed because the state of Texas decided to bus him to Florida. So as he's going through the legal process, we are purposely making sure that he misses his opportunity to follow the law. Purposely making sure that he misses his opportunity to start the process of being a taxpayer, a citizen, or whatever you want to call it. That's evil. The state of Texas, you are evil. And what we need to remind everyone again is that you are not free from that if you are helping and participating in that. All right. I want to thank everyone for our comments that came in today. Thank you for all the participation that came in. Thank you for everyone who is viewing and watching. As a reminder, on every Thursday at 7 o'clock, we have Thursday Thirst, which is our Bible study. I encourage you all to definitely come and participate in that as well. You can, same place, YouTube and Facebook. And thank you again for joining us. And as always, we're here every week, Impact 2022. Have a good one, and thank you.